Hi, I'm Pastor Brett Wilson, and I am sad but excited that this is the last of these conversations. I'll miss them. Inviting people to talk through the course of this season has been really wonderful. We've had some great conversations, and this is week 6. It's Holy Week. We're preparing for Easter and all that it holds. And so, for our last of our tea conversations, I've invited 2 awesome active GLC members who have really very different but inspiring lives. And I thought of them each because of the questions tonight. So I want to invite them to introduce themselves. Jim, why don't you start?
Jim Sievert. I been going to GLC for about coming up on 2.5 years, and Navy family. We moved here right at the beginning of the pandemic, um, just up the street in Grover Park, and um, walked kind of down Wisconsin Avenue and ran into Georgetown Lutheran, and we were still meeting online, but have been going. Pardon the pun, but pretty religiously for the past couple of years, and became a member in October, and just really excited to be a part of what I call Team GLC.
And I'm Katrin Brandt. I'm German. I'm a journalist. I work with the German public radio. So if I'm looking for words, please help me out. I try to speak as fast in English as I do in German, so I tend to get stuck from time to time. But my stories is very similar to yours, Jim. I came here in 2018 for a short-term assignment. Our office is on M Street, very close to Wisconsin. And when I asked one of my colleagues if she knew of any Lutheran church, she told me, look, up on Wisconsin, there might be one. There's this cute little stone building. And I went there, and I immediately, thanks to you, Pastor Brad, got torn into this community. And when I returned end of 2019 for a 5-year assignment, I became a member of the church, and I so much feel at home. I try to come every Sunday just because it's home. It's a place where I belong. And I was very glad to hear, Jim, that we both are going to have a conversation, because you're one of the people I always try to get in touch with, because we always have meaningful conversations after church, and only if it's just a few words. So it's just getting in touch with you feels always great.
A few words is all I know, like Dankeschön.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And your English is beautiful, Katrin. So yes, I wish my German was as good. But and you two do tend to be among the awesome group that lingers over coffee and that also welcomes other people, and that's so important. It's a part of church, and I think it's a part of like the liturgy and how God works, like going out after the service. And it's part of why I love GLC. So let's dive into these questions, because I'm really curious what you'll think about them. We're on the last week of them. These ones are a little bigger, inviting us to think over how Lent has been for us as people and what we think about with Holy Week coming up. And so the first question is, what's been the best part of your Lenten journey so far? Or we could expand it out a little bit. How has the season of Lent been for you? Maybe in your faith or in life in general, but what's been the best part of your Lenten journey? Either one of you can start. Yeah.
I've been thinking about why this year Lenten feels different for me. I've been kind of practicing some in Germany we call that 7 weeks without. So it's we're trying to clean ourselves and refrain from whatever, drinking alcohol or eating sweets or empty calories or whatever. So this kind of process of restraining myself and getting into a prepare myself for spring after a long, long, dark winter. I've been doing that for a while, but this year is different because with all the joy I'm expecting from Easter and from the return of spring, from cherry blossoms and magnolias and stuff like that, there's a darker undertone for me, because I've been thinking a lot about what's happening in the world, especially all those wars going on. Ukraine is very close to us Europeans. Israel and Gaza, of course, is a very important topic too. And I was thinking, and especially last Sunday when we heard about Jesus coming to Jerusalem, and already we already knowing how the story ends, I was thinking about courage and bravery and how to fight for what I stand for. I was asking myself, would I be able to endure that kind of pain and that kind of terror? Would I be ready to die for what I believe in, like Jesus did? What did he know? How the story would end for him? And he did go this way, probably, hopefully, full of trust. So this is this question of how tough would I be in a situation like this? That has been moving me, and that keeps rotating in my head.
Sounds like and I feel this too, like the beauty of spring this year and the joy of a lot of what we have. And, I'm personally safe and all these things, but yet at the same time, I'm like really grappling with these deeper things as well. Yeah. Jim, how has Lent been for you?
Couple of things come to mind. Well, one of the challenges of Lent is like trying to take a personal challenge, whether it's giving up something you like or whatnot. So I chose this season. I chose calm because we've been leading a very hectic schedule in the family. I have a daughter who's a senior in high school, getting ready for college. Just a lot of, my spouse's job changed in the fall, and so the new requirements for that, and we're going to be changing residences later this spring. So a lot of churn. So I've used Lent as kind of like a focus for calm. So to help me do that, in the last couple of months, I've started a practice of getting up and doing yoga first thing in the morning. So I'll do 20 minutes of stretching and yoga just to kind of give me mental space to like start my day before I get going with breakfast and getting my daughter out the door. And so that has been a joy. On the more faith side of things, we've been going through the passion stories and Bible study. I'm a Bible study-aholic. I try to go every week I can, and but rereading, just actually getting into the Gospels and peeling back, some of the layers of stories that you think but then you reread 2, 3 of the Gospels and kind of get fresh with the stories of Jesus's passion and that. So
I thought of you with this question because I was curious what you would say about how this calm thing was going for you, Jim. And
I do have one more though. So
yeah.
with the season of Lent is you generally approach spring, and so in DC we have the cherry blossoms, and I was married in April, and so for the last 20 years or so, whenever we've been in town, we've always gone down together to see the cherry blossoms. But this year, due to schedules and extracurricular high school activities and you name it, the three of us couldn't find a time. And I'm going to drone on just few more seconds, but there's this special tree that's been in the news called Stumpy.
Ah, Stumpy, yes.
And so,
Yeah.
and I remember seeing it in years past. It's just this forlorn little Charlie Brown Christmas tree of a cherry. And
Like one arm.
yeah,
Yeah.
he leans, and
Yeah.
it's one few branches out the top, but all three of us visited him at different times. Like Isabel went on Friday, and then Lisa went Saturday, and then Sunday evening I decided, well, I couldn't be left out of the equation, so I ran down to the metro, hopped on, and got my selfie with Stumpy, and so I actually, on my phone, I have all three of us, not together, but in that triptych, if
Yeah.
I can take.
But that's a beautiful Lenten story, isn't it? Or a spring story, the story of resilience and how everybody loves this little fighter
Of a tree.
of a tree. Yeah.
Yeah, there we are.
Oh.
So we're all there with Stumpy at some point.
Yeah.
You should put that on a family poster or on a T-shirt or on a coffee mug.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Well, I'm going to use that as a segue because right before we started recording, Katrin and I were saying that we should have show and tell at church, and you just showed us something, and I'm going to use it as a segue to our next question. And you already kind of shared a little bit, especially with your lens as a journalist thinking about the world. But the next question this week asks, have you noticed anything in the Jesus stories, particularly the Passion story, that reminds you of today? And you were showing me something right before that is an interesting, like, historical piece, but also is a Bible.
Yeah.
And I think about how do we find these intersections and in times of war and how our paths cross and how we think about Jesus in the midst of these things too.
Yeah. This is a small Bible, a New Testament. It is from March 6th, 1941, and it's signed by Franklin D. Roosevelt, and it seems to be a soldier's Bible handed out before this man probably left for Normandy, with this Bible somewhere in his pocket. I know there's some of those Bibles already with a hole in it because they had protected their owner. And in this on the first page you see my father's address, Karl Ludwig Brandt, in Korbach, Nordhessen. This is where my family is from. He told me he never found out how he got this Bible because there were prisoners of war in the hometown of my father, but usually, or basically, there were French soldiers, not so much American soldiers. But I keep wondering who was this man who had this Bible with him, and how did the war end for him, and what kind of strength and faith and how would you say that, solace did he get out of that? And so it's really touching, and it's kind of funny that when I was looking for matches to light my little candle, I found this Bible and how much it fits into what I'm thinking about. What did this soldier think? It's now 80 years that they invaded Normandy and turned the tide on World War II. And again, we're thinking about war and how to prevent this aggressor in Russia from invading other countries in Europe, and how our today's society would be ready to protect us and themselves. Would I or my husband or his children be ready to take a gun or get into a tank and get out and fight for democracy and for freedom and for women's rights and for freedom of press or whatever? So I'm really stuck with this thought, and it's the same for me. It's I'm looking forward to our vigil, to hear the story and to hear the happy ending of our story, and the story of hope and of trust, to go down into this deep, deep valley of shadows of death, and to return it with hope, and not knowing how the ending will be, but as Martin Luther King said, we take this first step and we don't know how the stairs will look like, but we have faith. So this is, I'm circling.
No,
You get the idea what I'm thinking about.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, I need this. I need the end of the story, right? Like, we don't have the end of all of our world stories yet, but I am looking forward to Easter to be reminded of the end of the story. Yeah. What does this question bring to mind for you, Jim? And you mentioned we've been reading through the Passion stories in Bible study, but what does this question bring up for you?
Jesus' life and modern day. I think I want to go one layer deeper and talk a little bit about the disciples and how we see ourselves in their stories, because it's tough you can't really compare Jesus to anybody a lot, Son of God, the Hosanna, the chosen one. And so since he's knows probably most of his life, he has the weight of the world on his shoulders, so you can't really compare him on a singular basis. But you take the disciples, Simon Peter, James, Andrew, all saints now, but they were just fishermen and doing their daily jobs. And would I have the fortitude or ability to go follow Jesus and all the way, and then the humanity that comes out when he's going through the passion, like Peter denying him 3 times, because he didn't want to get caught up in that, accusations and potential death, or Thomas the doubter, when he's resurrected, and I won't believe until I touch the wound of the soldier.
Yeah.
And so I think thinking about the disciples and how, even though it's 2,000 years ago, they lived agrarian and more rural lives, and we have technology, and I think people are people, and so if you're going to identify with anyone, I say look at some of the disciples' stories and realize that they're human too. You're human. We all are, just a day at a time, wrestling with our sin, trying to get through this world intact, and so that's kind of where I land with the Jesus stories.
And trying to figure out what is the truth. Would we, with all our technology, would we be able to recognize Jesus in our time? Would what would our criteria be to find out, is he the one? Would we able, can we, with all the noise going on around us, with all the noise we have in our phones, with all the distractions we have, with everybody claiming he or she knows the truth, they know the truth, would we be able to find out what is the truth, and would we be able to be ready to follow this truth? That's a very tough question for me, at least.
I'm always struck by, and I was this past Sunday when I read it aloud for the congregation in John's version of the Passion, where Pilate asked, truth, what is truth, right? Like, and that always is like, whew, that feels like a very modern question. And I was struck by it this past Sunday. I got home from church, and then later in the day, I saw a post from a Palestinian Lutheran pastor who shared a piece of art with an image of Jesus's triumphal entry at Palm Sunday. but with barbed wire in front of the gate. And so, and talking about how hard it was, how hard it currently is for many Christian communities to worship this week during Holy Week. So I'm holding that too as I read these stories and think about the real places and people too. But yeah. All right, the last question is a big one, but we've alluded to some of these things, to our fears and some of the things that kind of are like dark clouds maybe above us, right? The last question says, we're about to go into the valley of the shadow of death, just like you said, Katrin, with Jesus, and then rise again on Easter morning. What's one of your biggest fears these days? And what do you think is on the other side of that fear if we are to move through it?
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one. Yeah. Do you want Jim to go first?
Do you want me to go first?
For me, I think the thing that immediately jumps to mind is the change of, well, I'll just use the phrase empty nest. So Isabel, my daughter, will be going off in August, out of state. So, out of house and off to school. Is she ready? As ready, I guess, as any freshman will be. And are we ready? Am I ready? I've had a kind of a unique path in that I started in the Navy, and then after I left the Navy, I went to the workaday world for a number of years in civilian life, and then as my spouse kept going in her military career, I became more of a parent, taking care of all the stuff at home, and so now. That home stuff is going to lighten up when my daughter's gone, and going through that change, getting back to work. I don't know if it's so much fear that it's just we all have these periods of transition and change in our lives, and it's a day at a time. It's a process. This too shall pass. We'll get over it, but it's certainly on your mind.
So what's on the other side of it? Like, what can you imagine if, like, using the Holy Week analogy, like what's Easter in
So,
this?
the sunrise moment, I think, is hopefully finding a new passion. And so, weekend calls with my daughter, and just seeing how they're doing, and but also getting into a new rhythm weekly with hopefully an exciting new opportunity in the workplace, and who knows, continue my writing. I write a lot. Trying to share that with y'all a little bit at a time, but yeah, so the rainbow's out there. It's just behind the cloud for now.
Easter's coming, right? But we have to get through, the week. Yeah.
I would love to skip the dark part because I'm so sick and tired of the dark part. I'm under the impression that there's been so many clouds over the past 2 years with all the gaps and the not talking to each other that I experience in this country, and that I experience in Europe as well, but not in that in that depth as I feel when I'm here traveling through the US. I'd love to see the rainbow immediately, and my hope is that Easter will give me a bit more peace and trust and hope that there might be ways for people to talk to each other, and that there might be a common truth, and the common truth, of course, is love, and that people might be able to lower their expectations and not believe that their way is the only possible way, and they're the only way to reach truth and to find peace and whatever. That people will be able to have an open mind and not assume. This is one of the phrases I try to memorize. I should put that on a t-shirt. Don't assume, listen. So this is kind of what I expect at the end of this valley and the dark part, and I can't wait till it happens.
Me too. Yeah. I pray that we do find some common truth, and you're right. I think that truth is love, and that's the only way out of this. So any little bit we can find, and I'm thankful for how I see it in each of you and our little community, our little mighty fortress. And Team GLC, each of you have a great phrase for our little congregation. So
we should print that on a t-shirt.
We should. We should. Yeah. So I think that is a gift, and I give thanks for that. So we'll pause there, but I hope that maybe this has inspired you, if you're listening, to think about these questions for yourself, or maybe pick up a conversation with Jim or Katrin over coffee after worship, or to just take part and know that you're not alone if you're thinking about these things too. So together we will see Easter morning soon, and I give thanks for that. So thank you both for taking part, and I really appreciate it. And I look forward to worshiping with you this Holy Week.
And keep the flame.
Yes.
I was in Bible study with the Christ flame.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah.